Imagine waking up on your 81st birthday, sunlight pouring in through the curtains, a quiet morning, a warm cup of tea in your hand. You look in the mirror, and for a moment, you smile. Not because of what you see on the outside, but because of what you feel on the inside. Peace, fulfillment, gratitude. You didn't just survive 80 years. You lived them. Now imagine the opposite. You open your eyes to the same morning, but instead of joy, there's a weight pressing on your chest. Regret. Memories that feel like missed chances. Conversations you wish you'd had. Risks you were too scared to take. A slow, heavy ache that whispers, "Is this really all there is?" Why is it that some people cross 80 and feel like they're just beginning a new beautiful chapter, while others carry a quiet sadness, wishing they could go back and rewrite it all? That's not just a question. It's a reality playing out in thousands of lives right now. Maybe in yours. Maybe in someone you love. But here's the thing most people never talk about. Happiness after 80 isn't random. It's not just luck, good genes, or how much money you saved. It's built, moment by moment, by invisible choices made years, even decades before. Tiny, almost forgettable decisions that eventually become the difference between joy and regret.
In today's video, we're going to unravel this mystery, not with vague tips or feel-good quotes, but with real stories, scientific insight, and powerful truths from those who have lived it. You'll discover the 7 emotional, psychological, and life-altering factors that decide whether your later years will be filled with peace and purpose, or with pain and what-ifs. We'll meet a man who found true happiness after losing everything. A woman who never married, never had children, yet says she has no regrets. And we'll hear from experts who have spent decades studying why some seniors glow with contentment, and others crumble under quiet despair. But before we dive in, I want you to ask yourself something. A question that may seem simple but carries a lifetime of weight. If you keep living exactly the way you are today, what kind of 80-year-old will you become? Think about that, and hold on to it, because by the end of this video, your answer might change. And once it does, so will the rest of your life. He used to sit by the window every morning. Same chair, same coffee, same sigh. Frank was 84 when I met him. Sharp mind, steady hands, but a kind of sadness behind his eyes that didn't match the smile he offered. One morning, I asked him something simple. "What do you think about when you sit here alone?" He didn't answer right away. Then, after a long pause, he whispered, "I think about the things I never did." Frank had lived a full life on paper, a good job, 2 kids, a paid-off home. But he confessed something few are brave enough to say out loud. He had spent most of his life doing what was expected of him, not what mattered to him. You see, the first reason many people end up regretting life after 80 is this. They chose safety over authenticity. From early adulthood, many of us are trained by society, by family, by fear, to follow a path that feels secure. A respectable job, a stable partner, a life without too many waves. And while that's not inherently wrong, something quietly dangerous happens along the way. We forget to check if it actually makes us happy. Psychologist Dr. Bronnie Ware, who spent years working in palliative care, found that the #1 regret of the dying wasn't about money or success. It was this: "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Frank said he once wanted to write books. Stories about the war, about love, about his father. But he was told writing wasn't practical. So he became a banker. "I kept waiting for the right time to start writing," he told me. "But the time never felt right. And now, I don't know where all the time went." This pattern repeats itself across thousands of lives. A dream deferred becomes a dream forgotten. And by the time we hit 80, the quiet accumulation of unlived desires starts to feel like a weight too heavy to ignore. But what about those who are happy after 80? Take Ellen, for example, an 86-year-old retired teacher who finally opened a small art studio at age 74. "I always loved painting, but I was too busy raising my family," she told me. Then one day I thought, why am I still waiting? The difference wasn't talent. It wasn't resources. It was permission, the choice to honor what was inside her. rather than silence it. Experts call this self-concordance, the alignment between your goals and your authentic values. When you live in alignment, even small actions can feel deeply fulfilling. But when your life drifts away from who you really are, even success feels hollow. And that's the twist. Happiness at 80 often begins with choices made at 40 or 30 or today. So let me ask you, what have you been postponing? What truth about yourself have you buried just to fit in, keep the peace, or feel secure? Because in the next section, we'll explore the second, more subtle reason some seniors live with peace, and others carry a lifetime of regret. And it's not about what they did, but what they were never taught to feel. She had never cried in front of anyone, not even her children. Margaret, 82, had lived through wars, widowhood, cancer, and somehow still had the softest voice in the room. One afternoon, while flipping through a photo album, she paused at a picture of her younger self, standing barefoot in a garden, laughing. Then, just like that, her voice broke. "That was the last time I remember feeling free," she said. I didn't understand what she meant at first. But then she explained. "I spent my whole life being what everyone needed me to be. A wife, a mother, a nurse, a rock. But I forgot how to feel anything for myself. I survived, but I didn't really live." This brings us to the third and perhaps most overlooked reason why some seniors find joy in their later years, and others feel a strange, empty numbness. They either embraced their emotions or buried them. Our culture rarely teaches us how to process emotions. Instead, we're taught how to suppress, avoid, or distract ourselves from them. Anger? Be polite. Sadness? Smile through it. Fear? Stay strong. Vulnerability? Never. And over time, those buried emotions don't go away. They settle deep in the soul, forming quiet walls around the heart. According to Dr. Susan David, a renowned psychologist at Harvard, emotional rigidity, or the avoidance of uncomfortable feelings, is one of the biggest predictors of long-term dissatisfaction and even illness. In contrast, people who practice what she calls emotional agility, the ability to name, process, and express their emotions, report significantly higher levels of resilience, connection, and inner peace. Let's break this down with something simple. Imagine you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Each rock is an unspoken feeling. Grief you never allowed yourself to feel, anger you swallowed to keep peace, fears you pushed aside for the sake of being strong. Now imagine carrying that backpack for 60 years. No wonder so many people arrive at 80 exhausted, not from age, but from the emotional weight they've carried for decades. But here's the hope. It's never too late to unpack it. Margaret eventually started writing letters to herself. Things she never said to her late husband, to her younger self, to the daughter she lost. She said, "It didn't change the past, but it changed how I carry it." So let me ask you something. Be honest with yourself. What feeling have you been avoiding for years? What emotion are you afraid to face? Because you think it might break you. The truth is, it won't break you. It might just set you free. Because in the next section, we'll meet someone who lost everything. Family, health, even the ability to walk. And yet, he became one of the most peaceful, joyful elders I've ever met. And the secret wasn't what he had. It was what he finally let go of. Meet John, a 75-year-old marathon runner. He's not the fastest on the course anymore, but when he crosses the finish line, there's a glow in his eyes that says he's just completed something far more important than another race. John had always been active, running, hiking, cycling. But when he hit 70, something shifted. He began hearing more about aging gracefully and how the body starts to slow down. He started to feel it too. His knees hurt more, his energy levels dipped, and his mind often wandered back to memories of youth. But instead of giving in, John did something radical. He began studying the science of aging, and not just from the surface. He dove deep into the research behind longevity, brain health, and the body's ability to adapt, even in old age. John was amazed at what he found. Studies show that exercise doesn't just keep the body young. It has the power to rejuvenate the brain too. Research conducted by the University of Oxford found that regular physical activity, particularly aerobic exercise, can boost brain function, increase the size of the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory, and even delay or prevent cognitive decline. But here's the kicker. The benefits are even greater when you engage in regular physical activity later in life. Contrary to the common belief that it's too late to start, John's decision to keep running well into his 70s wasn't just helping his body stay fit. It was giving him a mental edge over the aging process. John's weekly runs became his form of meditation. Each stride was a moment of clarity, each breath a release of stress. And it wasn't just about physical fitness. As he connected with other seniors who were part of the running community, he noticed something incredible. They weren't just healthier, they were happier. Dr. Jennifer Heiss, an expert in exercise psychology, points to studies showing that older adults who maintain regular physical activity have significantly lower rates of depression, anxiety, and stress. These individuals also report higher levels of satisfaction and well-being, even in the face of adversity. But why does this happen? The answer lies in a little-known phenomenon called neuroplasticity. Our brains have an incredible ability to rewire themselves, to adapt and form new connections, no matter our age. In fact, the more we challenge our bodies and minds, the more our brains stay flexible and sharp. John didn't just run marathons. He ran toward something bigger, the understanding that aging isn't a passive experience. We can fight back. We can choose our health and ultimately our happiness. As John said after crossing yet another finish line, the body may age, but the mind? The mind can stay young forever if you keep pushing it. So what about you? What's your approach to aging? Are you accepting the idea of slowing down as inevitable? Or are you ready to defy the expectations? In the next section, we'll talk about a deeply uncomfortable, yet essential truth about the aging process. The very things you fear about getting older may be the things holding you back from finding real joy. And believe me, it's not what you think. Let's be honest. We all have our fears about getting older. But here's something that may surprise you. The biggest barrier to aging well isn't physical decline. It's fear itself. Sounds strange, doesn't it? We usually think the biggest hurdle as we age is managing health issues, maintaining energy, or facing the loss of loved ones. But research shows that fear of aging, fear of becoming weak, irrelevant, or forgotten, may be just as damaging to our well-being as the physical changes we experience. Take Eleanor, for example. At 68, Eleanor found herself withdrawing more and more from her social circles. Once an avid traveler, she stopped going on group trips. Once an active volunteer, she gave up helping at her local food bank. Why? Because she started believing the narrative that people her age just didn't belong in those spaces anymore. The truth, though, is that Eleanor wasn't physically deteriorating. She was suffering from a mental block, a deep-seated belief that she had entered a stage of life where her presence didn't matter, where her contributions were no longer valuable. What's even more surprising is that Eleanor's story is not unique. In fact, a study by the National Institute on Aging found that seniors who have a positive mindset about aging tend to live longer and have a higher quality of life. On the flip side, seniors who embrace a fear-based mindset tend to experience more health issues, including depression, anxiety, and physical decline. But why is that? Why does fear play such a massive role in our aging process? The answer lies in self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe that aging is something to dread, something to avoid, your body and mind will follow suit. You'll become more sedentary, more withdrawn, and more focused on the things you can't control. And without even realizing it, you're accelerating the very process you fear. There's a term for this: age-related stereotype threat. When we internalize negative stereotypes about aging, thinking we are too old, too slow, too weak, it becomes harder to break free from them. It's as though we are constantly fighting against our own expectations. The more we fear it, the more we create it. But here's where it gets interesting. The opposite is also true. Seniors who reject those stereotypes, who push back against the expectations of aging, not only enjoy longer lives, they enjoy richer, more fulfilling ones. Take 78-year-old Carol, who, after retiring, decided to learn a new skill: painting. Carol had always told herself she was too old to pick up new hobbies. But one day, she saw an ad for an art class for seniors. That night, she signed up. Now, Carol not only paints every day, but her artwork is displayed in local galleries. She has found a vibrant community of fellow artists and claims her mental health has never been better. Carol's story is proof that the act of challenging the fear of aging, by continuing to learn, grow, and create, can completely transform your experience of getting older. So here's the big question: what's one fear you've been carrying with you about aging? And how might it be preventing you from living your best life today? In the next section, we'll discuss an unexpected truth. Sometimes, the very habits that we think are helping us age gracefully may actually be the ones holding us back. And this revelation might just change everything you thought you knew about growing older. Let's take a moment to really dig into how small, everyday choices can drastically affect your quality of life as you age. Consider the story of Maria, a 72-year-old woman who found herself in a situation many of us might find relatable. After a few years of battling high blood pressure, she had been prescribed medication. She took her pills faithfully, but her energy levels were still low, and she found it harder to keep up with her friends. One day, Maria attended a wellness seminar hosted by a local community center. The speaker, a nutritionist named Sarah, was talking about the effects of lifestyle choices on aging. Sarah shared a staggering statistic that immediately caught Maria's attention. Nearly 70% of seniors who suffer from chronic illness could avoid or manage their conditions better through dietary and exercise changes. This statistic hit Maria like a ton of bricks. She realized she had been relying too heavily on her medication and hadn't made any significant changes to her daily habits. She was living with the assumption that aging came with inevitable health problems, and all she could do was manage them. But Sarah didn't stop there. She introduced Maria to the concept of mindful eating and light exercise, simple, accessible practices that could reverse the effects of aging, improve cognitive function, and lower inflammation. These aren't just buzzwords. Studies have shown that even moderate exercise, such as walking for 20 to 30 minutes a day, can significantly reduce the risk of developing heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. Maria decided to give it a shot. For the first time in years, she started focusing on her diet, not just in terms of calories, but in terms of nourishing her body with nutrient-dense foods. She swapped out processed snacks for fresh fruits, added more vegetables to every meal, and replaced sugary drinks with water. She also committed to walking every day. First, it was difficult. She started with just 10 minutes a day, but as she got stronger, she increased it to 30 minutes. She didn't need to run marathons like John from earlier, but she noticed significant changes. Her energy levels skyrocketed, her blood pressure dropped, and her mood improved. The most profound change? She felt more present in her relationships, more engaged in her community, and more hopeful about the future. Maria's story is not unique. Countless seniors are experiencing similar transformations by taking charge of their own health and making small, sustainable changes to their daily routines. Studies have consistently shown that lifestyle interventions, from a balanced diet to regular physical activity, are far more effective in maintaining health and independence in later years than relying solely on medication. But here's where it gets powerful. The psychological effect of taking control of your own aging process cannot be overstated. The simple act of deciding to prioritize health, not as an abstract goal, but as a day-to-day habit, shifts your entire mindset. It empowers you to look at aging as an opportunity for growth, rather than a phase to endure. The result? Maria not only added years to her life, but she also added life to her years. And the best part? She's not alone. There are thousands of stories like hers, people who have redefined their aging process by making small, intentional changes that ripple out into every aspect of their lives. Now, here's the question I want you to consider. What would happen if you took just one small step today toward improving your own health and mindset about aging? What if this one change could unlock an entirely new chapter for you? In the next section, we're going to explore the final, most powerful secret to aging with grace and fulfillment, a revelation that will challenge everything you thought you knew about aging. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. We've talked about the science, the stories, and the small steps you can take to improve your life as you age. But here's the final, most powerful insight that could revolutionize the way you view aging. The key to aging well is not simply about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. Let that sink in for a moment. It's not about how long you live. It's about how fully you live. We've explored how mindset can affect your health. We've seen how letting go of the fear of aging opens up new possibilities. We've discussed how making small lifestyle changes can dramatically improve your physical and mental well-being. And we've examined the surprising power of embracing new challenges in your golden years. But here's what ties it all together. Living with intention and purpose as you age is the ultimate secret to avoiding regret. It's what separates those who stay happy and fulfilled from those who look back on their lives with sadness, wishing they'd done more. Think about the seniors, the ones who continue to thrive in their 80s or even 90s. They're not necessarily the healthiest, the wealthiest, or the most physically active. What they have is something more intangible, a sense of purpose. They wake up each day knowing that they have something meaningful to offer the world. Whether it's their love of family, their passion for learning, or their dedication to a cause, they live each day with a reason to keep going. This is where everything we've discussed comes full circle. The actions you take, the habits you form, and the mindset you cultivate all tie into the central truth. Aging well is about embracing your power to shape your future. Take Henry, for example. Henry, at 84, was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's. Most people would have simply given up. But Henry didn't. He started learning to play the piano. At first, it was slow and he made plenty of mistakes, but he kept at it. His children and grandchildren began to join him, and his house became filled with music once again. For Henry, music became his purpose. It wasn't about being perfect at it. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about reconnecting with something that gave him joy. And that joy, in turn, gave him strength. Today, he's still playing, and his family calls his piano playing a gift, both to themselves and to Henry. What Henry teaches us is that purpose and connection are timeless forces that help us stay emotionally, mentally, and physically vibrant. When we step away from the narrative of aging as a time of loss and focus on what we can still contribute, we become the architects of our own happiness. So, I'll leave you with this. What will you do today to add more life to your years? No matter where you are in life, no matter what obstacles you face, you have the power to make that decision right now. You are not defined by your age. You are defined by how you live. If this video inspired you, if you've taken away just one lesson about how you can live your best life, then I want to hear from you. What's one step you're going to take to add more life to your years today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in today's content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. We're here to support you in every step of your journey toward a more fulfilling and joyful life. Thank you for being part of this community, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.